How's it going, guys and girls? Today we're going to go over a brief history of all of these Grey Knights books. Very brief. Talk about how things have changed a little bit with the new book, this one. And I'm going to go over a basic introduction to this series that I'm going to do on Grey Knights. So stick around and hopefully you enjoy it. Cheerio. Back in the day, Grey Knights were actually part of the Space Marine book, I believe. I started playing Grey Knights when they were in this book. Now, I've got a guard army that I've played for many, many years, and Grey Knights for me started out as a little detachment that attached into them. So back in the day, Grey Knights were allies, before allies were even a thing. So here's the old rules for allies, you can focus. So basically, you could include one of these guys into one of your old detachments. Basically, you could have up to 1 HQ, 1 elite, 2 troops, and a fast attack. So I used to take usually a HQ, probably a Grand Master, something like that, and some troops. Now, back in the day, this entire model range was in metal. So some of you guys may remember some of these old school metal Grey Knights. I do have them around somewhere. I used to have this Inquisitor dude too, actually. I've converted him into something else. Codex is still the same. he's holding up alright. He's actually pretty cool still. Where is old Codex? Here he is. Well, that's the not the metal version. That's the fine cast. But this dude, he's probably 20 odd years old. Anyways, good old Codex. But back then, the Grey Knights, they weren't as force, like using the psychic powers, they weren't as heavy. The basic Grey Knights troops, they wouldn't have the ability to do psychic abilities and things like that. The force weapons back then used to have a different rule. Some of the actual characters were allowed to use them as force weapons, some of them weren't. Back then, force weapons were a psychic power. You'd put a wound on your enemy, you'd roll your dice to try and beat your leadership, and bang, the psychic power goes off. And then the guy just dies instantly. But that was a different era. Then, I got this book, and this was when the Stormraven actually was first released, and it was back then it was just Grey Knights and Blood Angels. That was also when we got access to plastic Strike Marines and plastic Terminators, and also the Dreadnought model. I can't remember what year that was, but surely it'd have it written in here. 2010? Does that sound about right? I think so. But that was when I started getting a lot more Grey Knights into my collection. I've never really favoured either Terminators or Strike Marines over one another. But back then, I've got an old army list in here. Back then you used to get the full fluff about all of them. They kind of got rid of that, unfortunately. But yeah, that was the world where we used to have the table. So if you wanted to roll on a weapon skill versus another model that have a number like this dude, Grandmaster's weapon skill 6, if the light doesn't reflect it. So if your weapon skill was higher, you'd hit on a 3. If it was the same, you'd hit on a 4, and if it was lower, you'd hit on a 5. But then your ballistic skills were different too. So the Grandmaster's ballistic skill 6, so that would mean he'd hit on a 2, but if you rolled a 1, you'd then get to re-roll it, and on a 6, you'd then hit. So, different world back then, different world. A couple of cool things, like we used to be able to play Mordrak. Some of the old fans out there would remember good old Mordrak. He used to have his Ghost Knights. A lot of people miss it. That was when Drago got Matt awarded, and he became the Chuck Norris of the 41st millennium. Yeah. But back then we used to still have Inquisitors in our book. We used to have the Assassins and everything as part of our units. And we could take henchmen as troops. I'll just quickly find the troop section. Where are we? Leads troops. Where are we? There we go. So on there it says an elite, but you used to be able to get our good old mate Codiaz turned them into troops. And back then the Paladins could be turned into troops by Drago, and also the Purifiers could be made troops by Crow. Then things started to change. Look at this book. Grey Knights were that army that everyone hated to play until this book came out. Things suddenly changed. So this was when Grey Knights became pure Grey Knights. You used to get these big sick pages with all these cool information on them and cool pictures of stuff. But we lost all the Inquisition stuff. They kind of became their own thing, and they've never really had a book since that really kind of captivated them. But we didn't get any new models. Nothing new. Actually, wait, maybe we got one new guy. Hang on, let me just have a quick look. I think. No, there was no new models. And I think we still had some metal stuff. Like that dude there, he's metal. Brother Champion. And I've got the old Crow. Things like that. But this was when you started getting more psychic stuff into your actual units themselves. You'll see on here you got a special rule psychic mastery, if it'll load up. So you got mastery level 1, 2, etc. That was before they had a little caption that said this unit can cast 2 powers, knows this many powers, whatever. And back then I believe they were locked into certain psychic powers. Yep. So this is the strike squad. They were locked into what's it called? Banishment and Hammer Hand. They didn't know Smite back then. That wasn't a across the board thing. But yeah, you were locked into your psychic powers, and back then I actually didn't mind that because it kind of made the units feel a bit more diverse. Like you knew your strike squads were there to attack guys in combat, things like that. You know, your Purifiers were there to be a bit more of a combat heavy type unit, and also they had the ability to do the Sanctic Flame, which they still have. Paladins, they were there to just smash things, you know. Like it felt like they were a bit more their own kind of units. Then we had the last book. What do you guys remember that? I got the special edition one because I like spending my money on Grey Knights. This was the book when we got Voldus, I believe. I think it was that one, not the last one. Didn't see him in the last one. But yeah, we got Voldus. This was our first 8th edition book. This was, I think, came out at the same time as Chaos. I think it was the equal second book that came out in 8th. This was when we were allowed to select our own psychic powers. And what I kind of felt like in this book was that I kind of felt like Strike Marines, Purifiers, Interceptors really weren't that different. They kind of just all felt the same because I could just take whatever powers I wanted. It was useful, but being able to kind of cast things on other units and just have maybe 4 or 5 smaller units just buff up one big unit, like that's kind of how I felt it worked, and it didn't really feel like it synergized that great. And when it came out, it was a decent book. Like you got Drago that had all those abilities to make things reroll hits, etc, etc. And in the beginning that was cool, but then all the other codexes started to come out and we fell a lot behind. We got the Psychic Awakening update, but then kind of fell on the wayside not long after that. But now, we're at the new beast. So I'm going to go over this book piece by piece and go over each individual unit and go through some various bits and pieces. But before I go through that, I'm just going to go through a little bit of the basics in this video, and then after that I'll start doing some more dedicated videos for you guys. Cool. Okay, so in this book we've got some special rules which apply only if the army is pure Grey Knights, and then we've got some other rules which basically are their rules whether they're pure Grey Knights or not. So we'll go quickly over what the data sheets do. Now, the Brotherhood keyword. A lot of you probably understand what that is anyways, but basically in this book we've actually got access to special Brotherhood rules. It's the first time we've had access to that, other than just like little fluff captions that you can sort of just play them as a Brotherhood even though they're not that Brotherhood. Everywhere that you see the little thing here that says Brotherhood in brackets, you can replace it with one of those keywords. Those keywords give you access to different things. So we've got some abilities. We've got the Knights of Titan. Anything that has Knights of Titan written in their special rules part has access to and they shall know no fear. Bolt of Discipline, Masters of the Warp. And they shall know no fear. Each time a combat attrition test is taken for this unit, ignore any oral modifiers. So what that means is you roll your leadership test if you've in the morale phase. You've lost a couple of guys, you roll it off. If you roll a fail, you'll lose one guy straight off the bat, just gone. And then you count up how many models you have in that unit. You then roll that many d6. Typically the rule says that if you are less than 50% on a 1 and 2, you lose a model. There's also other things out there that can make you lose models on 3s or 4s and things like that. What this rule means is that you don't take any modifiers for it whatsoever. So you're only ever going to lose guys on 1. So it's a way to keep your elite guys a little bit more alive, but not failing the test in the first place is usually the best option. Bolter Discipline. Instead of following normal rules for rapid fire weapons, models in this unit shooting rapid fire bolt weapons make double the number of attacks if any of the following apply. The shooting model's target is within half the weapon's range, so that's like normal rapid fire. The shooting model is infantry and the unit remained stationary in your previous movement phase. Okay, don't move, you get your full shots, full range. The shooting model is a Terminator, and it's a Terminator keyword. It'll have it in the profile, so good to go there. For the purposes of this ability, the rapid fire bolt weapon is any bolt weapon as defined on page 104 with the rapid fire type. So let's check 104. It says Storm Bolter, Mastercrafted Storm Bolter, Twin Heavy Bolter, etc. Twin Heavy Bolter. Not that it matters. And any relic that replaces a bolt weapon, e.g. Fury of Demios, page 62. Rules that apply to bolt weapons only apply to the bolt gun profile of the combi weapons and the bolt gun profile of relics that replace combi weapons. If a bolt weapon has a shooting and melee profile, rules that apply to bolt weapons only apply to the shooting profile of that weapon. There is a relic in here which I'll talk about when I go over relics called the Fury of Demios, and if you stick it on Terminator, which you probably will, it will be getting 6 shots at 24 inches. It becomes a really, really good version of a heavy bolter. We've also got some special deployment abilities. We've got combat squads and we've got teleport strike. Combat squads mean that if your unit is a full 10-man squad when you start the game, before you actually start positioning things and placing them, you can break that squad into 2 units of 5 instead. It's kind of cool when you've got an army, when the army rules state that you can only have 3 of one specific type of unit unless they're troops. It means that you can have 6 5-man interceptor squads instead of 3 10-man squads if you so desire, or 6 purifiers or whatever like that. Just means you got a bit of flexibility, and it doesn't have to be written on the list. That's one of those things that you decide pre-game. Teleport Strike. During deployment, if every model in this unit has this ability, then you can set up this unit in a teleportarium chamber instead of setting it up on the battlefield. If you do, then in the reinforcement step of one of your movement phases, you can set up this unit anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches away from enemy models. Cool. And so basically, it's Deep Strike, old school Deep Strike rules. Not really. So we've got Masters of the Warp. With the Space Marine armies, they have all these rules revolving around their super doctrines, you'll hear people say. So they have a thing where they go like in heavy support, they get plus on AP to heavy weapons, then they go assault, etc, etc. We don't have that with Grey Knights, even though they are Astartes, they're just better Astartes. They've got a different thing called Masters of the Warp. So if every unit from your army has the Grey Knight's keyword, excluding Agents of the Imperium and unaligned units. So you can take Agents of the Imperium, which is assassins, things like that. So you can put them in there, it doesn't affect this. Psycho units with this ability gain a bonus, see below, depending on which tide of the warp is dominant for your army as follows. At the start of your first battle round, choose which of the tides is currently dominant. The dominant tide can subsequently be changed using the warp shaping psychic power. The available tides of the warp are as follows. So you pick one of these, you're stuck in it unless you change it with a psychic power. So we've got Tide of Convergence. When this tide is dominant for your army, add 6 inches to the range characteristics of psi weapons that models in this unit are equipped with. So that's your silencers, your heavy silencers, your psi cannons, heavy psi cannons, things like that. So they're 24 inches normally. It takes them to 30, which is it's good, especially with the smaller table size. And each time a model in this unit makes a melee attack with a nemesis weapon on an unmodified wound roll of 6, the target suffers 1 mortal wound in addition to any normal damage. So mortal wounds are always good, and sometimes there's just these things out there that are really hard to kill. A couple of mortal wounds here and there can really drop him pretty quick. That is a very good tide. The Tide of Clarity, also known as the Tide of Celery. While this tide is dominant for your army, each time an advance roll is made for this unit, treat a dice roll of 1, 2 as 3 instead. Each time a charge roll is made for this unit, treat each dice roll of 1 or 2 as 3 instead. This is actually not too bad if you're setting yourself up into a position where you're about to do a big charge. Flipping into this Tide of Clarity is not too bad at all. There is a chapter, Brotherhood in here, sorry, I should say. That's their psychic ability is that they can reroll their charges. If you cast all these powers on themselves first with another tide I'll talk about in a second, you can then switch into the Tide of Clarity, so they've already got their powers on them, and then if you don't roll enough to charge in, then you can re-roll it. It's not too bad. Tide of Shadows. While this tide is dominant for your army, each time a range attack made by an enemy model more than 12 inches away from this unit targets this unit, models in this unit are treated as receiving the benefits of light cover. If every model in this unit was already receiving the benefits of light cover, models in this unit are also treated as receiving the benefits of dense cover. So basically, vehicles don't get cover. This rule gives them cover instead. So your Rhinos will then become 2+ saves, your Dreadknights will become 1+ saves. Now keep in mind, 1+ doesn't mean you can't fail. A 1 will always fail. It just means that when someone's AP, let's say they attack the Dreadknight with AP 1, it'll go from 1 to 2, so you'll still be saving on a 2+. It's pretty good. The benefits of dense cover. That means you'll be -1 to be hit when I'm being shot at. So if I had a unit of, let's say, Purgnation Squad in a building on top, they're in light cover normally. If I've got Tide of Shadows, then they're also neg to hit. So someone shooting at me is like bang, 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 neg to hit, and then I've also got a 2+ save on those guys. Tide of Escalation. While this tide is dominant for your army, in your psychic phase, if your army includes any Brotherhood of Psycho's detachments, each time this unit is selected to manifest psychic powers, you can attempt to manifest this Brotherhood psychic power, even if that power has already been attempted to be manifested by another unit that phase. Each time such a unit attempts to manifest such a power, until the end of the phase, add 1 to that power's warp charge value for each other attempt that has been made to manifest it by a unit from your army in that phase, whether that attempt was successful or not. So we've got the Brotherhoods. I've just randomly opened up and we've got the Silver Blades. Their Brotherhood power. It has Warp Charge value 5, and if manifested, you get to use your Storm Bolters as pistols. So, being a Warp Charge value 5, the first guy that rolls for it, he needs to roll 5 or higher. Second guy that wants to cast it has to roll 6 or higher. Third guy, 7 or higher, etc., all the way through, if that's what you desire. Now, some Brotherhoods can benefit a lot from this, some not as much. And finally, we've got the Tide of Banishment. While this tide is dominant for your army, this unit gains the following ability: Banishment, Aura. While an enemy demon unit is within 6 inches of this unit, subtract 2 from the leadership characteristics of model in that enemy unit. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack against a demon unit, reroll a hit roll of 1 and reroll a wound roll of 1. Now that's a very specific one, but I do think it's pretty good versus demons. Greynights are supposed to be killing demons, that's what their main job is, and that kind of makes it show off a little bit. Pretty good, but situational. So we've mentioned Brotherhood of Psychos. What does it do? If your army is battle forged, each Brotherhood, that little keyword Brotherhood thing, unit in Grey Knight's detachments gains access to the following Brotherhood of Psychos rule. Provided that every unit in the detachment, excluding agents of the Imperium, unaligned and honoured knights, is from the same Brotherhood, such a detachment is referred to as a Brotherhood of Psychos detachment. Okay? Each Brotherhood has an associated Brotherhood psychic power. All Grey Knights Brotherhood Psychos in a Brotherhood of Psychos detachment know the relevant Brotherhood psychic power in addition to any other psychic powers they know. So everyone comes standard with Smite, and then they get their Brotherhood power, unless they don't have the keyword Brotherhood. Each Brotherhood has an associated Brotherhood Warlord trait. If a Grey Knight Brotherhood character model gains a Warlord trait, they can have the relevant Brotherhood Warlord trait instead of a Warlord trait from page 67. So reading that, it appears that the Warlord has to have that Warlord trait. You can't just take your Warlord and then pay the CP to give that to someone else. Yep, there you go. Each Brotherhood has an associated Brotherhood stratagem. If your army includes a Brotherhood of Psychos detachment, excluding auxiliary support, heavy, super heavy, auxiliary, fortification network, then you will gain access to the relevant Brotherhood stratagem. We don't have any auxiliary. Oh, we do have auxiliary support. We got Drago. We could put in there, I suppose, but super heavy auxiliary and fortifications, we actually don't have any. I don't think, not in this book, anyways. So yeah, they'll have access to the relevant Brotherhood stratagems. An example in the book here says a Battleforged army includes a Grey Knight's detachment in which every unit has the Wardmaker's keyword. Psycho units in that detachment gain the projection from purity psychic power. A character that's attachment that is given a Warlord trait can instead be given the Lawmaster trait, and you have access to the Masters of the Ward stratagem and can spend CP to use it. Thank you for clearing that for us, G-dubs. Detachment abilities. If a Grey Knight's detachment is one that includes models with the Grey Knight keyword, excluding models with the Agents of Imperium unaligned keywords. If your army is battle forged, Grey Knights in that detachment gain the Brotherhood command ability. Cool. Grey Knights in Grey Knight's detachments gain the Aegis ability. Cool, we'll go over that in a sec. Grey Knight's troops in the Grey Knight's detachment gain the objective security ability. So that's your strike squads and your terminator squads. Brotherhood command. You can include a maximum of 1 Grand Master model and 1 Brother Captain model in each detachment of your army. Each Grand Master model in your army must be from a different Brotherhood. Each Brother Captain model in your army must be from a different Brotherhood. That does make sense. You're not going to have 2 Ward Makers Grand Masters. And really, Voldus is their Grand Master, so if you take a different dude as the Grand Master, then shame on you. The Aegis. Each time a model in this unit would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound, roll 1d6. On a 5+, that wound is not lost. If this unit is a Psyker, add 1 to deny the witch test taken for that unit. So that's your kind of your chapter trait that like Ultramarines would get, things like that. So the problem is if you run a army that has Grey Knights and Imperial Guard, let's say, You don't get those abilities, nor do you get the other ones that I mentioned earlier. So yeah, interesting stuff that. Final part of this video we're going to talk about is the chapter approved rules, which is your special secondaries that you get. Per the enemy, we've got one called Destroy the Demon. I guess that's going to be about destroying demons. If you select this objective, you score victory points for each unit that was destroyed in the battle by a Grey Knight unit from your army as follows. A Demon Primarch is worth 5 victory points. Any other demon monster scores 3 victory points, like demon princes, things like that. Demon vehicle unit scores 3 victory points. That's like your Plague Burst Crawlers, your Death Defilers, things like that. And any other demon unit scores 1 victory point. Cool. So, obviously, if you're playing against, let's say, Death Watch, you're not going to take that one. Obviously. No mercy, no respite. Score 3 victory points at the end of the battle round. If one or more enemy units were destroyed by a Grey Knight's model from your army, they'll set up on the battlefield using Teleport Strike ability, the Teleportarium Shunt stratagem, or the Gate of Infinity Psychic Power during that battle round. Cool. So this does specifically say battle round, and essentially you can, if you're going in the first part of that, if you teleport your guys into the game on turns 2 or 3, if they shoot something off the table and kill it, they assault it and kill it, or if you shoot something, charge, don't kill that unit, then in your opponent's turn, in the combat phase, if you then finish that unit off, you still get that point. It's for the whole battle round. Being able to do the Teleportarium stratagem and also the Gate of Infinity as well, that's where you're going to get points in turns 4 and 5. So turns 2 and 3 is probably where you're going to score that more than often than not. And I think it's clear to note, it's not just when you turn up and you shoot them, or turn up, you get to wipe the unit out from, as soon as that unit has performed that action or teleport in or whatever, they can kill that unit, whether it's with psychic powers, shooting, assault in your turn or your opponent's turn. Very interesting to note. Then finally we've got Warpcraft. It's called Purifying Ritual. Score a number of victory points at the end of the battle round as shown in the table below, with the number of victory points scored depending on how many units from your army successfully complete the following psychic action that battle round. Purify Ritual, Psychic Action, Warp Charge 5. In your Psychic phase, this action can be performed by any number of units in your army. In your Psychic phase, if a Grey Knight Psycho unit from your army is within 3 inches of an objective marker, you can attempt to purify by performing this action. Each objective marker cannot be purified more than once in the same turn. So, you can see on here, there we go. So essentially, if you purify 1, you get 1 victory point. Purify 2, you get 2 victory points. Purify 3, you get 4, and if you purify 4 plus, you get 6. Now, the secondaries can get maximum of 15 for the whole game. This is actually going to be a bit tricky to do. You are playing an army that's quite elite, so you're going to be using these units that are quite expensive. And to get just the 4 points, you need to have at least 3 units out of action pretty much for the Psychic phase. Yeah, and they've got to be spread out across the table, so you can be taken out pretty easy. If you were really wanting to score points on it, you'd probably aim for late game. So probably trying to get it in turns, maybe get 1 or 2 in turn 3, then turns 4 and 5 you'll be wanting to get the 4 plus. But then being a warp charge thing, you could quite easily fail it. So you've got yourself all position, then it's like warp charge 5, bang, oh, I got a 4, I failed it. Yeah, so not impossible, it's a tricky one, but also very doable. Righto, so that's the end of the first part of this series. All the other videos will be a lot smaller than this one. We'll basically just go through each itemized bit piece by piece. And hopefully you guys enjoy it. I'd love to hear some feedback, see some likes, subscribes, comments. Stick around for the next video.